Welcome back to Grand Tactician Civil War Union Campaign. Last episode, we fought a battle over here in eastern Missouri. And won a victory against the Missouri State Guard, who should be retreating. In the near west, 2nd Corps of the Army, now the Army of Tennessee, has taken Nashville. Hopefully that eases the supply situation of this army as soon as we start advancing time. And our next target will be, hopefully, this string of forts over here on the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers. McClellan's Army of the Kanawha is just about finished in completing his fort. Not 100% sure what I'm going to do with him next. May move him on down and see if he can take Lynchburg. Although that would leave him, or I may not, that would leave him pretty isolated. Could, however, continue down here to Salem and start plopping forts right here along this railroad and road corridor leading into Tennessee. And that might be pretty useful. We have a siege going on. The plucky little Army of Georgia, which is growing. It's starting to turn into a substantial force. Currently 11,000 with 6,000 more troops on the way, according to intelligence estimates. But they have just initiated an attack on Fort Mackey, so we have a siege going on here. The 1st Corps of the Army of the Potomac is supporting. So this is currently shown as Advantage Confederacy, but the troops of McDowell's Corps have not yet really been reflected in the balance. So I would expect this is going to turn our way pretty quickly. Marsana Patrick has advanced the Army of the Shenandoah up into Virginia now, and is in the process of capturing Winchester. Hopefully this time to hold on to it. As a matter of fact, now that he's here, let's go ahead and get him building a fort. If I can find a spot for it. Okay, I think that'll work. And a supply depot. The other 2 corps of the Army of the Potomac are still positioned here at Fredericksburg, building a supply depot here. The Confederate Army of Northern Virginia is kind of arrayed over here near, Gordonsville. And considering that the 1st Corps is up here supporting the Fort Mackey siege, the Confederates actually have a pretty substantial advantage, because I don't think the 1st Corps could support if the 2nd and 3rd came under attack. The Confederacy might move here. 2 corps up here with the Army headquarters. 3rd Corps is Magruder's Corps, which is down here co-located with the Independent Army of Shenandoah. Army of the Shenandoah. There's also an independent somewhere buried in here. Trabou's Corps. So there's actually 4 corps in the Army of Northern Virginia now. I think that this Trabou's Corps may... No, that's a new corps. 0 troops in it right now. 15,000 coming. So that's new. That's not a pre-existing command. Which means there's Polk's command here at Yorktown. If I can get the mouse over. Over 10,000 men now in Polk's command. we're starting to see those numbers come up due to the Confederacy has recently implemented conscription. They've got a draft now. Up to 140,000. So overall, we have more troops. However, he's starting to build up a local superiority. Going to have to do something about that. As I mentioned in the last episode, I do have kind of a recruiting command. There's one in Pennsylvania that's got a corps worth of troops recruiting. And there's one in Indiana, same thing. Those troops, however, have not arrived yet, let alone being trained up or prepared, rather, for full up to into green readiness. So they're not ready to go to the field armies. And then finally, we've got Army of the Chesapeake, which I'm trying various methods to get these guys to besiege Fort Norfolk, which I perceive might be a little bit glitched because of a previous naval bombardment and how that all interacted. In any case, I'm finding it hard to take this fort, even though we've had plenty of forces in the area to do so. A couple things that I did off camera. I went through and I didn't exactly rename, but I shortened the names of a lot of almost all these armies. So instead of Army of the Potomac, I just renamed it to Potomac Army, Kanawha Army, Missouri Army. And the reason I did that was just to take those little prepositional words out and just shorten the names a little bit. So hopefully making, the various displays and tables and lists and everything look a little bit cleaner. And then the other thing that I did off camera is I've created a new organization, and that's the Department of the Capital. And so the idea here is if one of the smaller independent armies comes along, like the Army of Georgia has done multiple times, and as the Army of the Shenandoah has done, if they come up in here and attack one of our forts in the capital area, I don't want the Army of the Potomac on the hook for defending and supporting that siege, as we are right now, because now I've got the First Corps of the Army of the Potomac tied up here against this action by this smaller Confederate force. So what I've done is created an Army level command that consists of one Corps level fort command that has the actual forts and their garrisons in it, and then a corps, basically a small corps, which I've titled the Mobile Corps. So some infantry and artillery, and these are kind of mid-size. I went with the 2250 size brigades. They will slowly grow over time, but at least for initial recruitment. And so the idea is that this corps can just kind of bop around and build more forts if I desire. I'd kind of like one covering this north approach, and maybe another one down here at guarding this river landing or this river crossing. But my idea is that if one of these forts gets attacked, then we have a corps-sized formation of not quite 20,000. I think it's about 18,000. That can then go support against that siege and not have to use one of the Potomac Army's corps, if that makes sense. So I think that'll create for a more robust and autonomous, independent capital defense against one of these smaller armies. Now, if the Army of Northern Virginia makes a big move up in here, then of course the Army of the Potomac would be involved in defending against that. Okay. So as we start advancing time again here, let's see if the Chesapeake Army under Smith can actually besiege this fort. This little army right here is actually seeing a lot more tactical combat than I ever envisioned. I thought he would just be doing sieges and such. This army's actually fought 3 field battles. Twice against the Army of the Shenandoah and once against Polk's command, and they've done pretty well. To the point where it's actually a 1-star army now, and their brigades have some experience. Alright, Smith, besiege this fort. Please. As far as policies, right now I'm working on confiscated goods, the primary effect of which is to improve our supply of Okay, now he's actually getting this exchange units with fort. The only fort he's nearby is a Confederate one. Oh, that's Fort Monroe. Across the water. Okay. I do not understand why I can't do anything against this fort at Fort Norfolk. Army of Georgia pushed back up north at Fort Mackey, which is good. And given that Winchester is now Union, U.S. territory, I don't think he will retreat over this way. He should retreat south. That also means that the First Corps is now free again. I'm going to go put him back here at Culpeper. I created this department over here with the Mobile Corps and so forth, but of course, yeah, Lincoln needs a victory. Whatever. They're still recruiting. That Mobile Corps is not actually put together yet. This ironclad squadron that was beat up in the fight against Fort Washington before, it's going to take them a long time to reconstitute. Some of these ships are down into the 50s for, in harbor for repairs, ready in 56 days. It's almost 2 months. Same with Canonicus. All of these are going to take quite a while to come back to. This force is out of the fight for several months. This makes no sense to me. Got the supply depot, got the town. Have the port. Everything but the fort. I can't figure out a way to initiate a combat against it. Well, he's retreating right toward McDowell there. That doesn't make much sense. There he goes. Go have a look at the Army of the Tennessee. I did rename that one. They've moved far enough south, I renamed them to the Tennessee Army, not the Ohio. And their supply still sucks. Confederate Army of Tennessee down here by Chattanooga, but those are old location dates. They could be quite a distance away from that by now. The immediate threat, the immediate opponent, is the Army of the Mississippi. Well, there's 2 supply depots involved. And the First Corps is taking supply from the supply depot and from Clarksville. Now, at least Raleigh has got 100%. He's got more coming in, barely. Than is being consumed. Just barely, though. 65 coming in, 62 being eaten. So he won't come back up in his provision level for a long time. I feel like I need to build another supply depot over here. One for the First Corps, one for the Second. I really don't want to overbuild depots, but it's just not a good supply situation. And sure enough, the Missouri State Guard has come down and is now on the river right next to Cairo. Which they could just go ashore at Cairo. You better get Lion moving down to this direction. I almost feel like this fort is a bug that was taken out by the Navy, but for some reason just didn't show. I would test that. I feel like I want to move a Navy into range and see if another bombardment occurs. But this squadron would just get destroyed because it's small steamers. And I think the Virginia blockade would get torn up pretty good also. On the other hand, the main port in the area, the important one that was the primary reason for this blockade, has now been taken by the Union. These are the two kind of real ports. These others are little river ports up here that have very little trade. 2.5 thousand for rockets landing, for example. McClellan has finished this fort at Lewisburg, Fort Franklin. Let's find a political general. Kansas, New York. Yeah, that's a state worth improving support. And give them a couple of artillery batteries. And McClellan down to Salem. My other thought is because of this Army Corps structure in this Capital Department, if one of these forts gets attacked, it's seen as an attack on that fortress core. My hope would be that the mobile core would get automatically pulled into that as a reinforcing element rather than having to actually move it to the siege. I don't know if that'll actually happen or not. I'm interested to see if it does. Oh, I thought time was moving. Sorry. Treaty of Saigon, Empire expanding, French influence. So this is just kind of a historical flavor announcement, not directly relevant, but I believe this marks the establishment of the French colony in Southeast Asia. Something that will eventually come around to bite us in the ass about 100 years from now. The one thing I don't like about putting forts in these larger organizations is they now show up in the army list over here on the right, and it just completely clogs this up. Not a fan of that. I mean, just the core level command, that's fine. But the fort, I mean, it's kind of like a brigade showing up over here. They don't show up, nor do the divisions. The forts should not either. Okay, McClellan is in place at Salem. And where's Lyons? He's still moving toward Cairo. Which the Missouri State Guard did not attack. Looks like they came down here probably to Dyersburg. There's a depot building here. Can't see them. You can see their depot they're building. There's our Confiscation Act. That should help our supply efficiency in enemy territories, enemy states. So maybe that'll help the Second Corps here since they're in Tennessee. Maybe not. For our next policy, we've fallen down to BB plus in credit rating. It's getting a little low. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the next credit rating policy. But to do that, I need to bump up politics a little bit to give room for that policy. Because we were at 7 of 7, now we're at 7 of 8. Let's work on this. So we're up above 250,000 men in uniform, and as those departments continue to collect their brigades, that will keep going up. However, we've pretty much done what we can do for the Militia Act policies, and we're down to below 50,000 for an available manpower pool in volunteers. So that basically this is it. 250,000 in the field. There's some more forming. So when all is said and done, total manpower, military manpower, is going to be somewhere just over 300,000. I don't have room to create any more armies, corps, departments, whatever. If it gets to the point that I need to do so, I'm going to have to go to the draft. Oh, where do these guys come from? Army of the Northwest. Really? See, this would be the perfect, this is exactly what I was talking about. I don't want the Army of the Potomac to deal with this. I want the Capitol Defense Command, but they don't have their troops yet. How much longer till they get their troops? 5 days, 10 days, 13 days, 11. Yeah, still got a couple of weeks for this mobile core to come together, and then they have to improve their readiness. I forgot to mention, I put engineers. Gouverneur Warren, Horatio Wright, and Richard Delafield are in charge of this organization, and they're all engineers, which should help both for building additional fortifications and for siege warfare. But they're not stood up yet, able to help out against whatever the Army of the Northwest is going to do. But I am not going to move a Potomac Corps over there. I don't really feel like I can afford to. Let's see how the Department of Pennsylvania is doing with its recruitment. Just one battery has shown up. Army of Northern Virginia, 94,000 men when it gets up to full strength. Potomac Army, 88,000 men. A big chunk of whom are about to go home. And we've got supply problems again. Fort Mackey's actually gained an experience star. I don't know if I've ever seen a fort do that. And here we go. This is over in Tennessee. While we weren't looking, apparently the Army of the Mississippi under Howell Cobb has moved to attack the 2nd Corps. Total of 29,000 men against 30,000, so it's even right now. The only reinforcement for the Confederates is the Army HQ. And then depending on how long the battle lasts, the 1st Corps is 30 hours, almost 30 hours away. And apparently the 1st Corps has got some morale problems. One brigade. There is one unit that has got some kind of morale issue in the 1st Corps. Overall, I'm sure that Corps is fine. Okay. I am going to put a cut here, and we'll fight this battle, which should be in the vicinity of Nashville. Yeah. Anyway, we'll fight this battle in the next episode, which I will schedule for posting soon after this video is posted. Thank you for watching, and see you for the Battle of Nashville coming up.